Hey guys! Welcome to another Comic Boom Comic Source collaboration for the week of August 29th, 2023, where Jason and I, normally review every DC comic that comes out. Unfortunately, this week, Jace can't join me. He's got a family member that he's visiting, so he doesn't get to see very often, so he's taking this week off to do that. And so, I wish him well, and I'm sure that he's going to be enjoying drinks with his son. And in the meantime, we ourselves, I have reason to drink, given the fact that some of these comics this week aren't exactly up to par for me. And we're going to be talking about some of those comics. We get the end of Night Terrors, which is Night Terrors Night's End, which is ending for DC, and we're going to be diving into that. So we're going to be reviewing Night's End. We're going to be reviewing the opening stage, the opening Gotham War battle lines, which is the opening comic book of the big event, Batman's next big event, written by Chip Zdarsky and Tini Howard. And it's interesting. It's interesting how it's tied in and how the events at the end of Night's End will tie into Gotham War. We'll be talking about that. There's the final issue of Riddler Year One, written by Paul Dano, the individual who wrote or who played the Riddler in the Batman movie. There's the fourth issue of Nightmare Country, The Glass House, Sandman Presents. We have the sixth issue of the fifth issue of Superboy, The Man of Tomorrow, written by Danny Porter. And we've got the Doomsday Special, written by Dan Waters, which continues the story that began in Lazarus Planet, where Doomsday tried to resurrect himself through the collective minds of the citizens of Metropolis. We then, of course, get a wonderful, nice little side excursion with Gnort's Swimsuit Illustrated, or Gnort's Illustrated Swimsuit Edition. Man, when you got some Adam Hughes art showing off Power Girl, that can't be a bad thing, and it isn't. And we have Catwoman Uncovered, which shows off some of her covers, and we might reference some of the other comic book compilations and trades and collections that will be coming out this week of August 29th. But in any event, guys, let's get started. Let's jump right into Night's End. Okay, well, Night's End. Now, I guess I haven't really been a huge fan of the actual story of Night Terrors in and of itself, but I have enjoyed some of the tie-ins. And one of the things about Night Terrors Night's End is everything does sort of wrap up. Williamson wraps everything up, but in a way that I think lacks a certain amount of verisimilitude, and does so in a way that, while Insomnia is ultimately defeated, I think the rules keep changing in terms of what Insomnia's power set is, and it doesn't end up working all that well. But I will try to be positive in some aspects of it. First, I want to talk about the covers. The main cover is cover A. Isn't that bad? I don't know if that's Trevor Hairseen's art. I think it's Hairseen's art. It's not bad. It definitely has a nightmare feel to it that I don't mind. Cover B has, and I'm not even sure who the artist is on these various covers. It has a picture of the Blood Knight and the Blood Knight that I guess I've always been calling the Super Reaper, but I guess I'm wrong. The Blood Knight, and then there's this other nightmare character called Swords and Stones. And just a quick commentary on that. One of the really disappointing things about Night Terrors is the sleepless nights were boring. I mean, they just weren't particularly powerful. They didn't have a lot of gravitas. They never impressed. They never did anything impressive. They never did anything where they stood by themselves. They stood alone. They really had no bearing. They really were a complete waste of time. They were a complete waste of narrative time. And in fact, they looked better on the covers because they had to look good on the covers because they never looked particularly all that compelling in the comic books themselves, and they didn't have anything to do that was significant in any of the tie-ins that really stood out to me. So I thought that was unfortunate, it's one of these events where I think that these nightmare creatures, these nightmare characters created by Williamson, I strongly suspect that probably at some point in the future, they're probably going to have more gravitas, or they'll have they'll be better used by future writers and future storylines than they were here, because wow, are they forgettable in this series? It's just straight up. Um, uh, there's a cover C with Deadman tearing his face off. Again, really cool, sort of terror-filled looking covers. These covers really are great. I've said before that one thing about Night Terrors is that even if, say what you will about the series, some people are really loving it. So in fairness, some people are really enjoying Night Terrors because the premise, of course, being Insomnia, whose family was killed by the Justice League. He wants the world to feel terror when they think of the Justice League. And he wants to bring terror and bring nightmares to the world so that the world experiences, so he experiences the nightmare that he felt when he lost his family because of the failure of the Justice League to effectively deal with death metal, even though they ultimately won at the end of death metal, somewhat with Wonder Woman making that deal with the cosmic gods. Insomnia, for whatever reason, blames the Justice League for the loss of his family, and for reasons which Williamson never explained, Insomnia's family was not resurrected like every other family, and every other hero in the universe was resurrected at the end of death metal, except apparently for Insomnia's family. That plot point has never been explained. We're just supposed to just sort of accept that. But in any event, at the beginning of Night's End here, what I will say that what Williamson does effectively is he sets up something for two future storylines, and that is that once Insomnia has now got the power of the Nightmare Stone, and he's released all the nightmares of the superheroes all around the earth. And what's happened is that the people all around the earth are beginning to experience the nightmares in the images and forms of the various members of the Justice League. And so this will ultimately tie in and reinforce the idea that the Justice League is not a good thing. The Justice League aren't particularly, they're not heroes. And you can imagine if the entire planet begins to have nightmares, and those nightmares are essentially in the form of the Justice League, well, even when Insomnia is defeated, the people of the earth, the citizens of the DCU, have very bad memories of the Justice League. Now, they will objectively know that it's a nightmare and it wasn't real, but it will still have an impact. So every time you think of Superman or Wonder Woman or Batman or Flash or Green Lantern, while normally you would think of a hero, after the events here in Night's End, the citizens of the DC universe will begin to associate the Justice League with nightmares, with their worst nightmare, because that's what Insomnia does. And what Wonder Woman says at the end of Night's End here is that even though they managed to defeat Insomnia, the fact is Insomnia really won. Insomnia won the battle that really mattered. So much so that even at the end of this Night's End, Amanda Waller is actually very happy with how things turn out, because it allows Amanda Waller to, I'm just going to get to it here. It's going to allow Amanda Waller to pursue her campaign of her war against the superheroes. Remember what Amanda Waller did, and that was, I believe, in the end pages at the final issue of Dark Crisis #7, where she basically told all the supervillains on the planet, if any of you kill a superhero, I'll give you a pardon. Now, Amanda Waller is a complete bitch, and she doesn't have the authority to give pardons, but for some reason, I guess, I thought only the president can do that. But Amanda Waller is, let's face it, she's artificially elevated as being this massive powerhouse in the DC universe. No, Amanda Waller appears to be behind every single major villain in the DC universe, what's going on right now, whether it's in the pages of Doom Patrol, or in the pages of Titans, or in the pages of Justice League. Or in the Titans, or in the pages of doesn't matter. Amanda Waller is everywhere, and it's extremely telling that at the end of this issue, with all the chaos, Amanda Waller manages to have one of her minions, Bright, the villain known as Bright manages to acquire the Nightmare Stone because, of course, the Justice League is so incompetent they can defeat Insomnia, but they lose the Nightmare Stone. I mean, that thing is continuously getting lost and found. It's ridiculous, but it gets found by Amanda Waller's minion Bright, who combines it with the Helmet of Hate that was acquired on Lazarus Island, and then you end up with a new villain at the end called Dr. Hate, who, in furtherance of his machinations working with Amanda Waller, now that Justice League has been tainted, they're going to be working on trying to destroy the credibility of the Titans and to attack the Titans. So the Justice League, from a PR perspective, is basically taken off the playing field here in the minds of people. The people have given up their faith in the Justice League, and that coincidentally works right into Waller's plans. And the irony is that Amanda Waller didn't know anything about Night Terror. Amanda Waller did not plan what Insomnia did, but it just happens to coincide nicely with Amanda Waller's agenda of destroying the reputation of the heroes and to essentially eliminate superhuman metahumans across the planet to pursue her own machinations. What her machinations are, we don't know. Now, I start off talking about that because that's the most positive thing. Where this comic book goes off the playing field for me is just in the plotting itself. All you really need to know, there's not much to know. Insomnia has the Nightmare Stone. He releases it's inconsistent. He has the Nightmare Stone. First, he says that everybody's nightmares are released. Then he says that all the heroes' nightmares are released. Then he says that all the heroes' nightmares are going to be in the form of the heroes themselves. So which is it? It's all over the place. At one point, Insomnia resurrects Deadman's family as a gift to him because Deadman was brain dead in Night Terrors number 4. But Deadman stupidly took the Nightmare Stone to Insomnia when he was asleep at Arkham Tower. Why would you do that? He literally he thought he was going to use the Nightmare Stone to somehow, I don't know, stop Insomnia, but he literally took it to Insomnia. Again, just really bad. It's just bad writing. This doesn't make sense. It never made sense why Deadman would take the Nightmare Stone right to Insomnia. So Insomnia, he literally gave Insomnia the Nightmare Stone, and that's what caused all this. Then Insomnia is thanking him by resurrecting Deadman's family. And he has now a dead family. And I gotta say, it's a little bit of a joke. I mean, I know that we all love legacy in the DC universe, and I've said this. Jason and I have certainly talked about this before, and many people have made a note of it. The DC universe is expanding with legacy. You know, the idea we've got the Batman family, we're expanding the Flash family, we're expanding, Wonder Woman's family. Every Green Arrow is getting an expansion of his family. We got the Blue Beetle family expanding with more different colored beetles. Families are expanding here, and now Deadman himself has a family. I mean, it just, I don't know, but it just seemed this seemed like overkill to me. Deadman is dead. So, why don't you give him a dead family? Well, I think it seems dumb, but that's what happens here. And he seems to be content with that. Deadman seems to be, cool, thanks for giving me my family back. Except, of course, they're dead. They're dead just like I am. Is that really a reward? And not only that, what goes further and unexplained is that if Insomnia can resurrect Deadman's family, and they look ridiculous, by the way. They're all dressed like Deadman, and they got the D on the belt. Like, who would do that? Like, why would that's so stupid. Why would you make his family wear the same costume as he does? That just seems so stupid. If you're going to resurrect Deadman's family, I thought wouldn't you want him to make him look like his family? Instead, you make them look as dead as he is. I'm surprised that, Boston Brand even recognized them, for God's sakes. I mean, they're dead and they look disgraceful and disgusting, and they look as ridiculous as he does in that costume. In any event. So, but if you're going to go that far to resurrect Deadman's family, Insomnia, why don't you resurrect your family? I don't get it. Why didn't Insomnia do that at the end of Night Terror number 4? Why doesn't Insomnia resurrect his own family? Instead, he uses up a portion of his power to resurrect Deadman's family? Insomnia, why don't you resurrect your family? You seem to have that power, so why don't you do that? He doesn't do it, and it's never explained why he doesn't do it. all that happens is that Wesley Dodds, they go to the Hall of Justice, and then Batman decides to give Wesley Dodds the Dreamstone. Well, that's a good one, Batman. You think somebody else during the last 4 or 5 issues, or during the numerous tie-ins, you think somebody else could have just maybe thought, hey, why don't we go to the Hall of Justice and get the Dreamstone and fight the Nightmare Stone with that? But that's kind of what they do here. Finally. In other words, somebody finally is thinking. The neurons are firing in the brain. Now, maybe there's a collective stupidity that encompassed the entire planet, and nobody thought, well, go get the Dreamstone. It's in the Hall of Justice. But that's what they do here. They give the Dreamstone to Wesley Dodds, who is the Sandman. And, he uses it to battle Insomnia, essentially kind of to a standstill. But then Deadman returns, because Insomnia thinks he's taken Deadman off the playing field by saying, here's your family. Deadman, he's all happy. He's going to go off into the whatever constitutes an afterlife. He live with his family. But Deadman changes his mind, comes back and says, I can't leave my friends. I have to help my fellow heroes. I will sacrifice having a life with my dead family. Not much of a sacrifice, if you ask me. But he comes back, and together him and Sandman defeat Insomnia. And what is a touching scene is that Sandman chooses then to, instead of continuing to wander the earth, watching other people, live their lives and possessing them from time to time, he decides to essentially, I think, sort of allow himself to die and pass into the afterlife and sort of embrace an inner kind of peace where he can, maybe find his true audience. Because Boston Brand, he was always looking for an audience. But really, he was always cursed after he died to only be an audience of one. He never really had anybody who could really notice him or care for him or really acknowledge him all that much unless he was interacting with the heroes. And in any event, so Deadman sort of passes peacefully into the afterlife while Insomnia ends up being cursed. And I don't know how this happened, but I think Deadman, in an act of unbelievable cruelty, decides to curse Insomnia by having his own dead family, but his own dead family decide that for whatever reason they want to eat him. So Deadman's family, Insomnia rewards Deadman by giving Deadman a dead family who at least has the common decency not to try to eat Deadman. But then Deadman returns the favor after defeating Insomnia and apparently cursing Insomnia to be in the presence of his own dead family. But his own dead family are like Walking Dead zombies, and they actually want to eat him in the nightmare as he suddenly burns a fiery death. So why is it different? Why is one different than the other? I don't know. The rules explaining the Dream Stones, the Nightmare Stone, why this happened or that happened is all over the place. All you need to know is that the good guys win. Justice League wins. They send Sandman back into his resting place. And then suddenly, Batman absolutely collapses. Well, why did Batman collapse? Well, apparently he spent all that time being possessed by Deadman that he's absolutely exhausted. So, that causes Batman to pass out, and he literally falls asleep. And as we'll discover in the first chapter of Gotham War, which I'll review after this, he falls asleep for 8 weeks. He's not in a coma. He's literally just kind of sleeping. But it's a really, really deep sleep, so you might as well call it a coma. Call it whatever you want. But he's like really tired. And so that's really it. And basically at the end then, we have Wonder Woman saying that Insomnia really won because the world is afraid of the Justice League now. They think of the Justice League like nightmares. And that's embodied at the end with an image of a young girl taken, there was the same young girl at the beginning that had pictures of Wonder Woman and Batman and Superman and Flash and Green Lantern. And she was taking down her pictures that are on her bedroom wall of all her favorite superheroes. And she took them down. She threw them all in the garbage because the heroes now scare the crap right out of her. And, that's interesting. And again, that ties in with what Amanda Waller is going to be doing because that fits into Amanda Waller's plan to get the world against heroes because she wants to basically have the villains kill them all, take them off the map for reasons which we don't quite know the full amount yet because Amanda Waller's motivations and agenda are always her own and rarely do we ever really figure out exactly what the hell Amanda Waller wants. And at the end, of course, we have this Dr. Hate. And so that's interesting. That's interesting. So that's how Nightmare Night's End ends. And I'm more curious to see how this leads into Gotham War, which we'll get into, and the consequences of what this will be for Amanda Waller's agenda to take the superheroes off the playing field, and in particular in her ongoing agenda now that she has Dr. Hate powered up with the Helmet of Hate and the Nightmare Stone combined. Dr. Hate is a very powerful new supervillain, and this is a speculator alert. If you're a speculator, the first appearance of Dr. Hate is in this issue. And that's on the final page. And that ain't no cameo. So, yeah, there's that. So, the next one, this leads us into Gotham War. Now, with the Gotham War, the backup to this series, or rather the lead into this series, is in the pages of Catwoman, and certainly in pages of Batman. Chip Zdarsky, the writer of Batman, and Tini Howard, the writer of Catwoman, have sort of been... I think coordinating, it's been an extremely loose coordination. It doesn't line up all necessarily that well, but well enough that you can understand the gist of what's happening here in Gotham War. What's happened is that in the 8 weeks that Batman has been asleep, when he finally wakes up, he discovers a Gotham, a very different type of Gotham City. What he discovers is that, lo and behold, Gotham is a safer place. The crime rate has decreased by 75%. And he finds that there's a new boss in town. Not really a mob boss, although she is kind of a mob boss. She's not a crime boss, but she is a coordinator of crime. Certainly a certain type of crime, and that's Catwoman. Catwoman's taken control of the criminals. She's eliminated all petty thievery. She's trained them to become better thieves. She's eliminated the rapes, the assaults, the petty crimes on the side streets. No, she's taken up all these petty criminals and she's training them. She's actually training them to be better criminals. And so the streets are safer. And she's also making them give 15% of everything they steal to Gotham charities. So not only is crime rate down 75%, but all these charities are getting all this money from all these lovely criminals that are, all these criminals, and they only rob billionaires. They don't rob poor people or middle class. They only rob billionaires because it's a Robin Hood kind of mentality, right? And there's strict no-kill policies. If you work for Catwoman, and you pretty much have to, then you got to follow her rules. Now, here's the kicker. All the henchmen that used to work for the Riddler, the Penguin, the Mr. Freeze, et cetera, well, the henchmen, they're sick and tired of being sick and tired. In fact, Gotham War opens up with a young sort of petty thief, a guy who just risked it all working for, I think it was, he got screwed over by Riddler, by Mr. Pig or Mr. Freeze, and he gets a note dropped off by a cat that comes to his windowsill, and it's obviously from Catwoman. It says, if you risk your life, you deserve the rewards. And it has an address. And basically what Catwoman's doing is that she knows who all the petty thieves are. She's saying, look, stop working for these A-list villains. Come work for me. And you're going to get more of the spoils. Come work for me. I will train you. I will show you how to be a better thief. But there's going to be rules you're going to follow. You can't kill. You got to give some of your proceeds to charity. But I promise you, you're going to make a hell of a lot more money than you would being a henchman for the Joker or the Riddler or Mr. Pig or anyone, or ventriloquist or anyone else. Enough. Come. You deserve better than this. And so that is really the gist of Catwoman's plans. And we saw hints of this plan that Catwoman has to make Gotham a safer place. We saw this in the pages of Catwoman by Tini Howard, the evolution of what Catwoman was trying to do. And, the reality, though, is that in the lead up to this, Catwoman managed to acquire a new gang, Catwoman managed to acquire henchmen of her own. And the henchmen she acquired were from prison, because Catwoman was sent to prison. Even though she didn't do anything wrong, she refused to defend herself. She refused lawyers from Bruce Wayne. It was a very wonky, very it wasn't a very well written storyline by Teenie Howard. I'm not going to lie. It didn't make a lot of sense. What Catwoman did not make any sense. How many people decide to go to prison when they don't have to? When you got an airtight defense and not even the lead detective thinks you did it. Why would you do that? It was never explained. It never made any sense. But I think how we're supposed to buy into it is that even though it didn't read this way, the story, but the only way to make sense is to understand that Catwoman apparently let herself get sent into prison so she could acquire certain hench women, Hoops, Claywoman, Marquis, and Scarpiano. These women, she acquired a different set of people to help her out. And then she broke out of prison, and after breaking out of prison, she then takes over Gotham by taking out, manipulating Black Mask, controlling the 5 crime families, setting them up. She did, she manipulated all those things so that she now is the one who really has a lot of control over the 5 crime families of Gotham. And now she's making her move with Gotham Ward here to essentially not take out the A-listers, but keep the A-listers at bay. Because now that you got the 5 crime families under control, you got something else to worry about. Joker, Riddler, Penguin. Now, he's coming up on the scene from Penguin #1 with Tom King. But there's these other A-list villains you got to deal with. Well, how do you do that? Catwoman takes all the henchmen, the petty thieves, and now that the A-listers don't have any henchmen to hire because they're all working for Catwoman, it takes them off the playing field. And now, what happens here is that I'll just start at the beginning of this comic just to sort of go through this. It's sort of a review. It shows Batman waking up, and Oracle's making sure he's okay, but Oracle doesn't have enough time to tell him that in terms of what Selina has done, because a lot's happened over the last 8 weeks, and Oracle lets him know that both him and the Bat family knows that Batman lost his hand, that he lost his hand, and they know that he's been sort of getting slower, and he's getting, he's an older Batman now. He's not as young as he used to be. And so what does Batman do immediately when he wakes up? He immediately goes out on patrol. I mean, he doesn't, you would think he would go and, maybe say hi to the other members of the Bat family or something. No, he just says, Oracle's right there when he wakes up, but he right away starts, and he checks out Gotham to see, because he's afraid, what have I missed? What have I missed? Because he's so obsessed with his mission, right? That's Batman. And even the Batman of Zor-Anah, that part of his psyche that is really diehard Batman, is telling him, essentially hinting, let's go check out Gotham. And they do. And right away, Batman encounters two petty thieves that he thinks are still petty. Marcus Tolliver and Stan Bevington. He knows them as being petty thieves, but he tries to stop them from doing a jewel heist, and they manage to outwit him. They manage to escape him because it's clear they've had some training. And so right away, Batman knows that, okay, something is up, something has changed in Gotham. And what is subsequently revealed is that Catwoman is training all these thieves. Catwoman is literally taking these thieves and she's giving them on-the-job training, like what she calls external training. And what's really interesting here is that Selina uses the language of education and university language in talking about her operations now. She talks about her graduates. They're not her fellow criminals. I mean, they're her graduates, and it's not like the hideout, the villain's hideout. No, it's called the training compound. She calls them her newbies and rookies. I mean, she's using the vernacular as if somehow that this is like a school. And in fact, it pretty much is. They got this massive warehouse. She's training these petty thieves how to be physically fit, how to stay fit, how to work out. She's giving them physical fitness training. She's giving them training on how to rob banks, how to rob the elite. In fact, later on in the issue, her and her minions, Marquis in particular, Marquis is her sort of second in command. She's this short-haired redhead who's second in command, who Selina befriended in prison. And Marquis is one of her second in command, helping a lot of these petty thieves become better thieves. And their goal here is to, hey, let's rob all the billionaires. The billionaires live in high rises. we got all the petty thieves. They're no longer roaming the streets, raping and pillaging all the troglodyte masses. So let's just get them to rob the rich, right? Right. So that should work just fine, right? Well, apparently it's kind of working. Even Oracle acknowledges that. But now Selina has heard through Oracle that Batman's woke up, and she's really worried because, as Catwoman says, I was hoping I'd have more time, which is kind of funny when you think about it, because I'm thinking to myself, you were hoping that Batman would sleep longer than 8 weeks? I mean, if I was you, I'd have been happy that Batman slept for like 10 hours. Forget about 8 weeks. Is this, I think you want to talk about wishful thinking in any event. But, she's concerned what Batman might think, as she bloody well should. Because, I mean, it's absurd. But the true absurdity I'm going to get to here, because the only thing more absurd than Selina thinking that Batman maybe slightly could be convinced to her way of thinking just because the crime rate's gone down is that the entire Batman family, with one exception, agrees with what Selina Kyle is doing. And that's what I find most astonishing. Now, eventually Tim Drake discovers that Batman makes his rounds. He runs into Tim Drake. Tim Drake's happy to see him, but Tim Drake also tells him, look, Selina has called a meeting, and, Batman's thinking, what the hell's that about? Well, then they go out. They go to this meeting. And Selina at the meeting then spells out for the readers exactly what the hell is going on. And she basically sets things up, and she tells them what's been going on. And Selina says that, she says, guys, I'm glad you all made it here. But I just want you all to know, I just want to confirm some things. And of course, Batman shows up. She tells them, confirms that crime is down 75%. She says all the A-listers are basically, all the villains are surprisingly quiet, and she's not really sure why. They're suspiciously laying low. And that should be a red flag right there. I'm going to come back to that. She acknowledges that guys like the Joker, Riddler, et cetera, they're lying low. They're suspiciously low. Where are all the A-list villains? That would be my red flag. That's something that Batman doesn't bring up when he's arguing with her. Selina says that there's no hired help. And she implies that the Joker, Freeze, and Riddler, that they're no threats if they don't have hired help. That somehow Selina is saying that Selina says two contradictory things in my mind. She says that all the real big villains are suspiciously missing, and then she says that, well, they're no threats because they don't have any hired help, which is absurd. How many people actually believe that the Joker isn't a threat if he can't find hired help? I mean, come on. Mr. Freeze isn't a threat just because he can't hire a few minions? Come on. Even the Penguin is somewhat of a threat even without minions. You could argue that. He's a little fat bastard. But in any event, my point being is that Selina's argument is, I think, very, very weak. There's only one thing Selina's method, there's only one reason to maybe to have second thoughts about maybe Selina Kyle's method being a good thing, and that is because, well, the crime rate has gone down 75%. But I find that very, very hard to believe and too good to be true. Now, Selina's best argument is that petty alleyway robberies are down. And that's an argument that she makes specifically to Batman. She says to Batman that petty alleyway robberies are down. And she's looking right at Batman when she says it, because you got to remember that Batman's parents, Bruce Wayne's parents, were murdered in an alley, right? So it was those petty thieves in an alley that ended up killing his parents. And those crimes are all but gone. They're taken off the map now because those petty crimes now, she's taking guys like Joe Chill, or guys that are akin to Joe Chill, and she's training them to be better thieves. And so instead of them robbing and killing people, they're robbing billionaires and skyscrapers and giving 50% of what they rob to charity. And she thinks that Batman is going to accept this, or hoping that he will. I don't even accept this as a reader. This is absurd. Now, what is more incredible to me is the argument that, the entire Batman family, with the exception of Damian. I love Damian. Damian is so awesome in this issue. Damian is my new favorite Bat character. I can't believe I'm saying this. For the first time, I think, in the history of Batman family, Damian is the most sane character out of all of them. For some reason, Nightwing, Oracle, Cassandra Cain, Spoiler, Jason Todd all side with Catwoman, all have no problem with, oh, okay, yeah, we'll just rob the rich. We'll stand by and let you train thieves to become better thieves, train them to be better fighters, better thieves, so they can rob billionaires. As long as the troglodyte middle class and the lower classes are fine, we're going to let you do whatever you want, Catwoman. I mean, come on. Who buys into this crap? Well, apparently, the entire Bat family does. Now, Damian, God bless his soul, basically doesn't have any of it. He calls the bullshit for what it is, because it's absolute, total hogwash. And Damian basically says, I'm not going to stand for this. And he bloody well shouldn't, because it doesn't make any, it doesn't make any sense. Because you can imagine that, as Damian says, all you're doing is that you're going to be training these people to be more, better at what they do. How is that helping us? You're going to make things worse. This is a dumb plan. And just because the crime rate might temporarily go down for a period of time, sooner or later, this is not going to work. And, when Damian freaks out, and I'm gonna try to get to the part here. Damian says these criminals are just going to be better trained when they slick back to their twisted masters. And then Spoiler, Spoiler's never been too bright to begin with, says, but why would they go back? She's given them independence. Seriously? Look, does anybody believe that if the Joker wants you to work for him, do you think that because you've been trained by Catwoman, the Joker's going to give a shit? Seriously. This is absolute hogwash. I don't believe this for a second. And the thing is, all the members of the Bat family seem to be taking this really seriously. They're all they're seriously giving this consideration. Oracle, even Oracle thinks it's working. Jim Gordon's daughter. Jim Gordon is Jim Gordon is all about fighting crime, going by the book. And so's Barbara Gordon. Why would she consider this? Spoiler thinking that things, thinking that, it's worth giving it, contemplating it. Hogwash. Tim Drake and Duke are noticing that there's no needless deaths of business owners who are getting shot during petty robberies versus a millionaire might be missing his jewels. And so the way that the Bat family appears to be looking at it is, who cares if millionaires are the only victims of crime or billionaires are the only victims of crime? The most people are feeling safe. So this is what it's come to. And it's astonishing that it's reached this point. And of course, Jason Todd, after this meeting, sides with Selina. He goes back to Selina and says to Catwoman, look, you're going to need my help because there's no way Batman's going to go for this for obvious reasons. And you're going to have to help me. I will help you keep Batman off your back because Jason Todd's not an idiot. He sees that this is going to lead to some kind of, he doesn't use these words. These are my words. But Jason Todd knows this is going to be an absolute disaster. It's not going to work. Batman's not going to accept it. And of course he doesn't. And so Jason Todd is on Selina's side. Now, part of my criticism is that I don't even think Jason Todd would agree with Selina's methods, if I'm honest, and I could frame that argument, and I might. But even if I grant you that Jason Todd would side with Selina, there's holes in this. But let's move on. So then, what happens then? There's a long, drawn out, prolonged, unnecessary 5 or 6 page sequence where she's having a conversation with Jason Todd, completely unnecessary because I don't see, it doesn't work for me. This doesn't fly. This is a mischaracterization in my view, even of Jason Todd, because Jason Todd's he's past this. I don't see Jason Todd betraying Batman like this. I certainly don't see Nightwing siding with Selina. Give me a break. Not in a million years. I just don't see it. But Batman then goes and he goes to Commissioner Montoya, and Commissioner Montoya makes the observation that crime has went down since you haven't been around, Batman, suggesting that crime rates only exist because Batman exists. crime only goes up because Batman's around. Batman attracts the A-list villains. When Batman disappears, the crime rate goes down. It would seem to me that what the A-list villains have actually done is that they've intentionally stayed off the playing field because Batman's not around, luring Selina into a false sense of security so that when Batman comes back, they've got PR against Batman. They got people who might be against Batman by suggesting that the crime rate's down, Batman stay away, so while the A-list villains can plan something epic and big. I think that's what's happening here. And kudos. If that's the case, no kudos. I mean, shame on the Batman family for falling into this nonsense. But God bless Damian Wayne. He doesn't fall for any of the crap and doesn't fall for it. And he thinks it's a disaster waiting to happen. And of course it is. Now, the thing is, the one thing that Selina Kyle might have going for her on this is the fact that Batman is not bringing his A game. Batman he's still tired. He's slower than he used to be. And he's still possessed by the Batman. He still has that psychotic side of him, the Batman of Zerna. And Batman is questioning himself. Batman does question himself and wonder, well, could we do more for Gotham? Is Selina's method better than what mine is? Maybe Selina, by letting some crime go, if you let some criminals go and you save more lives, isn't that maybe a better alternative? Because if Batman could save and prevent one young boy like himself when he was younger from losing some parents, and all he had to do is maybe ascribe to a different way of fighting crime, maybe Selina has a point. Even though it does compromise every principle he's ever thought of himself, maybe you should put human life above principle. Maybe you should ignore the strict application of the law and the crime control model, and maybe look more at doing what is the most practical. Allow some crime to be successful, some criminals to be successful, and just maybe deal with other crime. In any event, as Batman is contemplating that, what happens is that one of the petty thieves, or the jewel thieves that Selina has trained, ends up getting killed robbing a penthouse. And we don't know who killed this thief, but I suspect it might be one of the A-list villains at some point that'll be revealed. But very clearly, Batman makes up his mind that no, this petty thief is dead because he listened to Selina. This petty thief had a family, he had a wife, he had children, and because he ascribed to Selina Kyle's way of doing things, he's now dead because he bit off more than he could chew. He tried to steal outside his pay grade, and now he's dead, and it's Selina Kyle's fault. Batman decides he's going to be taking apart Selina Kyle's sort of empire. And that's where things, I think, that this is why this issue is called Battle Lines, because the battle lines are drawn. And you can absolutely see why Batman is on the side he is and why Damian is on Batman's side. And of course, you would expect Damian to be on Batman's side. And shame on Nightwing, Oracle, Tim Drake, Jason Todd, spoiler, that they're going to side with Selina Kyle on this. Unbelievable. This doesn't, Selina's argument that there's going to be no violence. She's going to train criminals so that they're not violent, so there's no confrontations. And, oh yes, make sure you give 15% of everything you steal to charity. Yeah, I'm sure the criminal element, that superstitious and cowardly lot, will happily give 15% of what they give to charity. You can't even convince nice people. You can't convince law-abiding citizens to get 15% of what they have to charity. My God, most of us make fun of religious people who give 10% of their crap to charity. Forget about 15. You expect criminals to do this? Give me a break. This is absolute nonsense, hogwash, absolute hogwash. And in any event, I really wish Jace was here to give his opinion on this. Maybe he would accuse me of being flamboyant, or maybe getting a little bit, being overzealous and ranting too much about this. But I'm stunned by this. But yet, I am compelled to admit this story, it draws me in. I'm really curious to know how in the heck this is going to resolve. Because I don't know how this cannot do considerable damage to the relationship between Batman and Selina. And by the way, I got to call out Selina Kyle here. At one point, while Selina Kyle is bitching out Batman, trying to make her argument, she makes a point of saying to him that the reason why she never married him was because of his obsession with being Batman and the city, which is absolutely not true. And I'm going to call Selina Kyle a bitch, because we all know that those of us who actually wanted Selina Kyle and Batman to marry at that time, which, boy, oh boy, you avoided a bullet, Batman. But the only reason, let's be blunt, that they never got married was that Selina Kyle never showed up at the wedding ceremony. So, Selina, Batman would have married you, you bitch. But he didn't, because you never showed up. You were the coward. Let's make that absolutely clear. That's all on you, Selina. So this rewriting of history by what she did, Catwoman, either two possibilities. She's either straw-manning Bruce Wayne, Batman, to make a point, or Chip Zdarsky never read that actual Batman run properly. But I suspect, I'm just going to call Selina Kyle a bitch and say that was on purpose by Chip Zdarsky. But there's no question that wedding never took place because of Selina Kyle's cowardice. And what I like about the debate between Catwoman and Batman, and I encourage you all to read it. I didn't actually spoil a lot of it, to be honest with you. The specific words that they say to each other, I think, are words that you could tell that it's an emotional argument for them. It's not just logical. It's an emotional appeal. Catwoman is trying to emotionally appeal to Batman. And by referencing the petty thieves and the alleyways, she's trying to get him on her side. But then when she realizes that she's failing, then she resorts to personal attacks. And it was actually well scripted, well done by Zdarsky. That's kind of what's kind of pulling me in here in terms of where this is going to go. I'm very pissed off at the Batman family for, I think, betraying their own character here and betraying Batman. And it's a betrayal. It's a betrayal, but in the highest regard. As Batman says to, I believe it's Tim Drake, that, how can you do this? Everybody at this meeting is a victim of crime, and I helped you overcome that. And now you're going to pick and choose what crime to stop, what crime we should prefer over another. I mean, absolute hypocrisy. I'm 100% on Batman's side here, and so should anybody who's on the side of justice. But hey, it is what it is. But wow, this is I really like this issue. And even though it got me sort of emotionally invested, while I can criticize its verisimilitude to some degree, I hope that this encourages a lot of fun, good old-fashioned fun debate between people who love reading Batman and love reading superheroes. It reminded me a little bit of Marvel Civil War, where you could sort of pick a side and then bitch to you could disagree with your friends about, whose side are you on, government regulation of superheroes versus vigilantism. Are you on Captain America's side or Iron Man's side? I kind of like this a little bit, because there is an argument. Catwoman's side is defendable. I'm not a fan of it, but it's defensive. It is defendable in kind of a weak way in my mind, but I would love to watch people, and I look forward to people debating that. Because I think it is a lot of, I think it's fun. And that's ultimately what we want to get out of comic books. Okay, so, let me just take a break here and take a sip of water, and then we're going to get right back into reviewing more DC Comics. All right, the next comic we're going to be reviewing is The Riddler Year 1, Issue 6, Book 6. Now, this is the Riddler Year 1 based on the movie version of Riddler from the Batman movie. And so if you're a fan of the Batman movie, and if you love Paul Dano's portrayal of the Riddler in The Batman, then this is definitely a series that you might want to pick up. It's the delays on this comic book have been just insane, and I would argue, frankly, inexcusable. Although, I mean, there's been lots of delays. You look at Dark Knights of Steel, issue 12, 21 months for that series to come out. And you look at anything by Jeff Johns lately, it's just been insane. But in any event, I've not been reading this because I didn't like the Batman movie, and I didn't like Paul Dano's interpretation of the Riddler in that movie. So I had no interest in picking this up. Every time that this would come up for review, Jace would be the one reviewing it. I straight up, I skim read this and I didn't understand what was happening. The art is fantastic. The art here is by Stevan Subic, and I do want to recommend this comic book, even though I've only ever skim read it. Just for the art alone, you can tell that this is a prequel to the movie, and so this basically explains the psychological degradation of the character that would become the Riddler. The art is truly spectacular. The layouts are so meticulous, so well planned. It's when I look at this, you know, the reason why I get frustrated when I look at this is because the art truly is fantastic. And when I think that it was wasted on this story, because I don't think anybody's buying this. I'm sorry. My retailer hasn't. I don't think my retailer ordered a single issue of this. I don't know who's buying, who's reading this. This should never have been 6 issues long. Book 6? Come on, man. You don't make a prequel. I mean, this feels as long as the movie is. I mean, just really, that's just wrong. But you know what? If you're a diehard The Batman fan, then by all means pick this up. But I got to tell you, and maybe this is just me being cynical, but you know, people who really love movies and the superhero movies, only about 1, maybe 2% of them, I would say, are even comic book fans. You go to, I'm ask anybody, ask them if they love the Batman movie. If they say yes, ask them if they would happily read 6 books of this, and every one of these books is contains 35, about 33, 34, 35 pages of story. So you're looking at about 196, 200 pages of story. Would you want to read a 200-page prequel for the Riddler, for the Batman movie? Now look, again, the art's fantastic, and I can tell you that it ends. There's a lot of Easter eggs I could tell just by looking at the art. And this is why I want to give kudos to both Paul Dano, who's done his homework here. He knows the Easter eggs that are in the movie. I mean, he was the Riddler in the movie. Stevan Subic, the Easter eggs in the art is incredible. So much is hidden in the art that, and there's very little dialogue in parts. Paul Dano is letting the artist Stevan Subic let the art speak for itself, and it really works. And so I'm just not into the Batman lore, and but I have to recognize talent and creative abilities when I see it. And artistically, this is really a work of art. And I wish I would have given it more of maybe a concentrated read, but I just can't. It's too depressing to me. It's literally the exact opposite of what I wanted in a Batman movie. And incidentally, it's the exact opposite of what the DC universe needs right now. And I know I'm probably an outlier saying that. Everybody wants a dark Batman. I don't. I want a 1970s style Batman with more of a sense of humor and a little bit more of a Playboy style. And I think that they need to do, I really, truly believe they need to do that. More of a Mark Waid, world's finest sensibility for a Batman, as opposed to dark, and depression, let's go slit our wrists type of scenario. But in any event, it is what it is. So pick up your Riddler year one if it strikes your boat. It doesn't strike my fancy. But all right, so the next issue that we are going to review is Nightmare Country, The Glass House. This is issue 4. This is James Tynion, I think, has done a really good job with this series. The one criticism, though, that I have of it is it hasn't been all one series. We had the Nightmare Country, the Glass House. Prior to this, issue 4, we had a Thessaly, the Witch one shot. Prior to that, we had a Nightmare Country. There was a volume 1 series that came before that. It's also tied in somewhat to the Dead Boy Detectives, and all of the Sandman stories they're sort of somewhat connected. And this is also tied in. There was the Tale of the Corinthian, which is also in Nightmare Country, and everything. Let me put it to you this way: that the story is really cool. Okay, I think it's cool, and I'm gonna. I really enjoyed this particular issue, but at the same time, I have to admit that I think for new readers coming into this, you're probably going to want to read all the trades here. So first, let me talk about Nightmare Country: The Glass House. It is written by James Tynion IV. Artist Alessandro Etherin is the artist, and Patricio Del Pesce does the colors. And what's curious, what's happening here is there is, for those who watch the Sandman series on TV, if I was to sum this up, I'll say there is this character called the Corinthian who's got like teeth for eyes. When he opens his eyes, it looks like a set of teeth, and he's a really creepy character, and he's kind of a serial killer. And in the first volume series, the Sandman essentially ended up linking the Corinthian to the soul of this woman by the name of Madison Flynn, who was murdered by this other character who is, I think, tied into one of the other members of the Endless, who are trying to take over, I think, the Dream Realm, because we've got Morpheus, who is the Sandman, of course, and he controls the Dream Realm, and the other members of the Endless are Death, Delirium, Desire, Despair, Destiny, and Destruction. And one of those members of the Endless, I think, is making a power play to overturn Morpheus and get all his power. And that essentially what's happening here. And so in this particular issue, we've got Thessaly the Witch, who is confronting one of the writers who is writing the screenplay for the life of Madison Flynn, and Madison Flynn's soul is tied to the Corinthian by the decree of the Sandman. So that way the Corinthian can't kill anybody unless Madison Flynn agrees that it's okay. And Madison Flynn she's a good person, as opposed to the Corinthian, who isn't so much a good person. All right. But the powers that be here, there's this corrupt corporation that's trying to orchestrate the end of the world, that I don't know who controls it. It's maybe hinted that it could be destruction or despair or delirium or one of the more nefarious forces of the Endless. And what happens in this issue is, as Thessaly and Max, the writer, Thessaly is trying to tell Max, look, Max, they want you to write this story, but the minute we leave this boardroom, they're going to kill you, because there's more at play here. That the only reason they want you to write this story is that they're following a ritual. It's very ritualistic. They don't actually need Max, this character by the name of Max, who works for this corporation. And there's this evil CEO, Teague is his name. He wants Max to write the script for Madison Flynn's life story. Madison Flynn now being she's in the body of a cat. Her soul's in the body of a cat. And she's linked to the Corinthian. Why is all that? Why is it playing out this way? Well, these nefarious forces, and we're not sure who they are, they're playing out a ritual that, even though they don't need this Max character to write the script for Madison Flynn's story, because they already know it, they need to do it for ritualistic purposes, and Thessaly the Witch is not sure exactly why, but she knows that she needs help, and so she calls upon Lucienne, who is the librarian for the Sandman, to basically help her find a particular book so she can become more powerful. Meanwhile, the Corinthian is being manipulated by one of these nefarious forces, and they're telling him, Corinthian, look, come and work for us. Come and kill for us. And Corinthian says, look, I can't, I'm not even going to think of talking to you unless you can tell me and promise me that the cat is dead. If Madison Flynn is dead, if that cat is dead, then I'd be free. But I can't, basically Corinthian is saying I'm useless so long as that cat's still alive. And I don't want to piss off the Sandman, And so I'm not talking to you guys because this cat's still for so long as this cat's still on the playing field, that cat has the soul of Madison Flynn. Madison's soul is tied to me. I can't do any killing unless she says so. She's not likely to say so. So just stay away from me. I don't want to piss off the Sandman. Well, that's kind of what, now that's sort of where we're at. That just so happens that Thessaly and Max do manage to escape, and they're now in the safety of they're near the Sandman. And the issue ends with the Crow talking to Morpheus, the Sandman, saying, "Aren't you going to make your appearance?" And it appears as if the Sandman himself, Morpheus himself, is scared, saying, "I don't want to reveal myself yet because not until I know what they have planned." We still don't know who they is exactly. We don't know that. So that's yet to be revealed. But if you've been reading the story so far, you're likely invested in it. I think I've been enjoying it. I've actually been, I think the art is a little bit maybe too stylistic in parts of this narrative, but for the most part, I have to admit that I think Lissandro Ethering's art's pretty good. Patricio Del Pesce on the colors, it does work. I do love all the covers are fantastic, as they always are. Cover A, B, and C, they're really good, and it's definitely worth checking out. Nightmare Country. If you haven't jumped on board Sandman, the Sandman universe for DC yet, you might want to wait till the trade comes out, probably in about 4 or 5 months. That way it's easier to read all in one trade, because I don't think that these things are being published all. I don't know if the sales on this is all that high, but I wish they were. I wish this series success, because I think James Tynion has been doing a really good job on this series, and it's not getting the attention that it deserves, quite frankly. Okay, so the next comic we're going to review is Catwoman Uncovered, #1. Catwoman Uncovered, and this just duplicates all the many issues of the covers featuring Catwoman that have graced the covers of various DC comics over the last few years, the more prominent ones. There's some really nice covers from various artists. Quite frankly, most of them, there's a good number of them I simply don't recognize. But some of them are really good. I think this one's by Jeff DeCall. For those listening on the podcast, I'll maybe just describe these names. We got Adam Hughes, we got Frank Cho, we got a lot of really good artists, Nakamura, and and in between some of these cover pages, we've got Catwoman giving sort of guiding the story as all these covers are shown. There's no rhyme or reason to these covers. Quite frankly, they're just really great cover artists, from Art Germ to Lee Bermejo, and I'm trying to find. Yes, not all these covers have actually names on them, which is really unfortunate. Why do they? They put the name of some of the artists on some of these pages, and then they omit it on others. Chris Anka is another cover artist. Wu Chel Lee, another artist. Again, Art Germ Lao is a really good one. Sway Art. Pardon me, Joshua Sway Swaby, Jim Ballant. Susie Maka, Stefan Sejic. Some really sexy covers. A lot from probably Art Germ is probably the most prominent. Some really provocative ones. Another one by Art Germ Lau, Jenny Frizen, Rose Besh, by Susie Malka again. You see a lot of these names are being repeated for obvious reasons. Jeff DeCall, simply because he's that good. Joshua Sway Swaby again. Of course, Terry Dodson and Rachel Dodson. And Susie Mika. A lot of these covers, what I like about them, and the reason why I'm glad that they maybe put them in a Catwoman Uncovered compilation like this, is because, frankly, these are issues that, 95% to 99% of comic book collectors will never buy the comics upon which these covers existed, because these are ratio covers. These are ratio covers, not variant covers, ratio covers. And the difference between a ratio cover and a variant cover you can buy for $1 above cover price or cover price. But a ratio, no, you're spending $30 to $50 because it's a 1 in 10 or a 1 in 25 or a 1 in 100 or 1 in 150 or whatever it might be. It's, I'm against that, but I rant against this nonsense of these types of covers, charging more for a cover. In my view, if you have fantastic art, I don't know why you wouldn't go out of your way to make it the same price on all of them. I mean, that is to say, I do know why. It's a marketing gimmick. They need to justify the speculators who are amazingly, in my view, foolish enough to play that game, to put out extra money and just lose their money because it's just, in the long run, there's just no money in these ratio variants. There just isn't. Time is going to prove me right on that. I think it already has, if you want to be blunt. Going back 5-10 years, the lack of return on investments is, I think, insane. I think you're crazy to buy ratio variants unless you get them for cover price. I actually think it should be illegal to charge more than cover price, but that's another topic. That's the lawyer in me talking, but I'll give you my Fair Trading Act argument. When somebody asks, but why would they? It's a boring legal argument. In any event, I'm just going to go on here. There's lots of covers. You guys can pick it up if you like. Let's just go on. The next issue I want to review is Superboy and pardon me here. Let me see. Yeah, the next issue that we're going to be reviewing is Superboy and the Man of Tomorrow, issue 5. All right, guys. In this issue, Connor Kent comes into his own, and he manages to defeat Trav. He manages to come back and defeat Trav. Connor he failed to stop Dominator X on the planet Dissidia last issue, and he's all depressed about that. And Dominator X has this small little creature called Infinity that he's trying to protect, and this Trav character is trying to kill. Trav is a member of the Cosmeteers that betrayed Superboy, betrayed him, and essentially wants to, believes that he killed Superboy, and basically Trav is all about using lethal force. He wants to kill the Dominator X. And whereas Connor wants to maintain his moral compass. And Connor, from the beginning of this series, the hero's journey that Connor is on is that Connor basically left the Earth looking for adventure. He wanted something exciting to do because on Earth, let's face it, Connor Kent is kind of a redundancy, right? And so he basically took off, threw on his leather jacket, took off in his space, ended up having some adventures with the Cosmeteers. One of the members of the Cosmeteers is Trav, betrayed them all, and this Trav is basically going ballistic, and he wants to kill Dominator X and this Infinity character that the Dominator has. And the Dominators are all about cloning. The Dominators are all about cloning superheroes and cloning them for the purposes of creating sort of a master army to basically take over the universe. That's what the Dominators do. Trav wants to kill the Dominator. Now, Trav also has a sort of I guess you could say it's a glorified Mind Stone on his forehead, and he uses it to control the troglodyte masses, as I always like to call them. And ultimately, this issue, writer, I should say the writer here, Kenny Porter, he actually does a reasonably good job entertaining me in this. I didn't mind it. I should say I'm trying to find there doesn't seem to be, the credits here don't really seem to be helpful. Pardon me, Janoy Lindsay does the art, color, and the inks on this, and does a reasonably good job. I thought the art was really good. I thought the coloring actually was really good. I love the backgrounds, and so kudos to Lindsay on the art. And Kenny Porter on the script. What I like about this is that in this story, Connor comes into his own, and he realizes that he can inspire hope for the victims of Dominator X, and he's got to stop being he's got to stop being the child of yesterday and start being the man of tomorrow, which is what the series is actually called, Superboy, the Man of Tomorrow. So this is him sort of embracing the final aspects of his hero's journey, that he's got to stop thinking about himself, because Connor Kent was sort of embracing a form of narcissism in terms of putting himself and his own self-image ahead of the best interests of people. And it's a funny thing, what Connor discovers here is that while he feels he was being kind of a narcissistic bastard in different elements of the story, he was still helping people, and he still managed to get people to care for him, and he still managed to inspire hope, notwithstanding the darker angels of his nature. And so he sort of embraced being the best that he could be by the end, and he takes on Trav, and he manages to defeat Trav. He rips I'm calling it the Mind Stone, out of Trav's forehead, and he manages to defeat Trav. And unfortunately for Trav ends up getting killed in an explosion, in a telekinesis explosion, where Superboy was trying to save some lives. The explosion that resulted actually ended up killing Trav, so that the only thing left of Trav was his skeletal remains, and the spinal column. The spinal column of the remains of Trav ends up crawling into a Dominator tube, where there's a Kryptonian clone in the tube, and he ends up taking over the body of another clone that looks an awful lot like Superboy. And he says, well, he's now Superboy has another clone that looks just like him, but it's controlled by Trav, his former ally and now enemy. And so there's one more issue to go. It's not bad. I still think Kenny Porter did a good job here. I think he's a good soldier for DC. He's learning the ropes. He keeps getting better and better. And I think they put some faith in him in this series, and I think he did a good job. And I think, this is how you do it, DC. You got to have these writers get their feet wet, put them on titles like this, on the less important titles, let them, figure out the wrinkles, and gradually elevating them to bigger game. And because I think he's done not a bad job here, and it'd be interesting to see what series Kenny Porter is going to do next. And I actually think that for those fans of Connor Kent, I think this is a fun series. I do have some friends who are fans of Connor Kent that seem to have issues with this series. I don't know why. This has been a lot of fun. Jason and I have reviewed this series, every issue, and we've enjoyed it. It's a fun series. I'm not sure what people are expecting. I actually think this has the voice. I think Kenny Porter has nailed the voice of Connor Kent. I think this reminds me of the kid of the original Superboy in the leather jacket, based out of Hawaii back in the early days of reading, post Superman Returns, or the Return of Superman after his death. So I think he's done a good job here in nailing the dialogue and the voice of Connor Kent, and I think it's it's decent. So it's probably worth checking out. And all right, so the next series we're going to be reviewing is Doomsday Special. Action Comics presents. Oh my God. That's what I said.
Oh my God.
Say it again.
Oh my God.
There you go. Now, where did this Doomsday Special come from? This sort of it felt like it to a little bit to me like this is a series that this came right out of the blue. This is like a one-shot Doomsday Special, and the motto seems to be "He who rules in hell." So I'm thinking to myself, really? Is Doomsday now going to be given hell? Is Doomsday going to be the new ruler of hell? Well, that's interesting. And it would appear that kind of does seem to be kind of where they're going with this. Now, the last time we saw Doomsday was actually in the pages of Lazarus Planet. If you recall the Lazarus Planet, it was actually a one-shot. It was the Lazarus Planet event had a series of one-shots, and one of the one-shots was actually called Lazarus Planet. And in that story, Martian Manhunter and a new character by the name of Raphael Arce, an African-American character, Raphael Arce, and Martian Manhunter battled Doomsday because Doomsday was trying to resurrect himself through the memories of Metropolis. And it was a story written by Dan Watters, and this Doomsday Special is also written by Dan Watters with art by Eddie Barrows. And what's interesting here is Dan Watters expands on his Lazarus Planet story because the premise is that Doomsday unsuccessfully tried to resurrect himself through the collective memories of the citizens of Metropolis, and was trying to access through the mind of Martian Manhunter John Jones, who is a telepath. And this other telepath, this Raphael Arce, was an ordinary citizen who was given telepathic abilities because of the Lazarus frame. And this Raphael Arce sacrificed his life to prevent Doomsday from doing that. Well, what's revealed here is that once Doomsday was defeated, once Doomsday's attempt to resurrect himself through the collective memories of the citizens of Metropolis, once he was defeated, Doomsday ended up going to hell. Well, the problem is that when Doomsday got to hell, the devil himself, who was actually Lucifer, but they can't call him Lucifer because they already have a Lucifer in the DC universe. So they call Lucifer First of the Fallen. So it's First of the Fallen is the ruler of hell. Really a screwed up DC universe here because we have Neuron, now we have First of the Fallen, we have Lucifer. I mean, we got multiple different. I thought we have Hades. We got different versions of hell. There's different levels of hell, and different levels of hell are actually revealed in this story. So we got multiple different. We got the nth level of hell. We got Hades. We got Wrath. We got different levels of hell. We got different types of demons. We got different. So it's kind of a hodgepodge bunch of nastiness. All you need to know is that when Doomsday ends up in hell, Doomsday upsets the balance of hell, and what happens is that Doomsday upsets the balance of hell so badly that the First of the Fallen basically calls upon Martian Manhunter and Supergirl, Kara, kind of pulls them in to hell by saying, look, I need you to get rid of Doomsday for me because the problem that the devil has, the problem that the First of the Fallen has is that, is that the people of hell they're starting to believe in Doomsday. Doomsday is so powerful that the First of the Fallen might not be able to defeat Doomsday in battle to be the ruler of hell. And the problem that this causes in regard to the hierarchy within hell is that if the First of the Fallen dons his armor to fight Doomsday, the moment he puts his armor on, the soldiers of heaven will begin to believe that the devil is preparing for battle, and that will lead to a battle between heaven and hell. So the First of the Fallen, the devil here, he doesn't want to put his armor on to fight Doomsday because that would cause even greater problems. Now, he's very arrogant. First of the Fallen makes it quite clear that, he could defeat Doomsday. But he can't be the one to defeat Doomsday. What he wants Kara, Supergirl, and Martian Manhunter to defeat Doomsday for two reasons. Number one, he doesn't have to do it. And that way, if he does it, it might lead to a war between heaven and hell. And secondly, it will humiliate Doomsday. Make Doomsday look bad. And if you make Doomsday look bad in hell, then none of the other minions in hell, the people who end up going to hell, none of them will believe in Doomsday because Doomsday will be humiliated and they will then continue to worship and honor and respect the devil himself as opposed to Doomsday. That's kind of it in a nutshell, how I would explain it. Now, the art here by Eddie Burrows is absolutely fantastic. I love how brave Kara is here. She's super brave. The way that Kara battles Doomsday, she's as brave. I mean, she has this awesome armor that she dons, and I don't know, it's almost like it's the devil's armor that she's fighting Doomsday with it. She looks amazing. Eddie Burrows' art is just fantastic. I love it. She's just as brave as Superman was when Superman was battling Doomsday. There's a really good conversation between Clark Kent and Kara at the beginning, where Clark Kent tells Kara how unbelievably difficult it was when he fought Doomsday, how he felt like death warmed over. He felt that he had nothing left to give, but he's never felt that tired and absolutely exhausted in his life. And he basically tells Kara that on a physical level, he said, "For my body and soul, there have been few darker moments than trading punches back and forth with this monster I knew was going to kill me. Each swing being a dead weight, a desperate crashing thing, and then everything went black." And that's how Superman remembers his passing. And Martian Manhunter calls upon Kara because Martian Manhunter wants Kara to help him, because Martian Manhunter doesn't want to take Superman with him to hell, because he doesn't want to traumatize Clark. He doesn't want to risk traumatizing Clark, because this was a monster that killed him. But so he wants to take Kara. And now Kara, you can imagine how brave Kara has to be. And that's how brave Kara is here. And that's what I love about Dan Waters' portrayal of Supergirl here, is that Supergirl is willingly joining Martian Manhunter to go into the depths of hell where they confront Doomsday. And Kara's got to know the possibility that she could die at the hands of Doomsday. After all, he did kill her cousin and at one time. And so it's very well done. The art is fantastic. The battle sequences are just great. They're colorful. The use of just the pacing, and just the use of the framing devices in the choreographed fight scenes where Doomsday is throwing Martian Manhunter against the walls of hell, and just the battles and the you can see the looks of terror on the face of the citizens of hell as they're watching this battle take place. And as Doomsday becomes more and more powerful every time, remember, every time that Doomsday gets killed, he resurrects and he's more powerful than ever before. And so you can imagine how powerful Doomsday is going to be the longer he stays in hell, because there might be many forces in hell that are capable of killing Doomsday, but eventually they're not going to be able to kill Doomsday because he's going to be more powerful than them. So this is a legitimate concern for the first of the fallen here. It almost seems inevitable that Doomsday will eventually take over hell. Now, based on the cover of the Doomsday Special, where it shows Doomsday sitting on a makeshift throne, I think it's fair to say that sooner or later Doomsday is going to be the one who rules hell and defeat the first of the fallen. But that does not happen in this one-shot special. In fact, what happens at the end is that Martian Manhunter and Supergirl do manage to defeat Doomsday in a very clever way, and in a way that kudos to Dan Waters. He actually has Martian Manhunter and Supergirl inspire the citizens of hell. All these people that were sent to hell because they're evil and horrible people. She appeals to them and saying, "Look, if Doomsday becomes so powerful, if your belief in Doomsday becomes so powerful or too powerful, he'll become real and he'll be able to access the real world, and he'll be able to kill your loved ones, and your loved ones will experience a hell that you could help them avoid by helping us defeat Doomsday." And what all the souls of hell do is that they pile up and they create a doorway. They become basically the doorway to hell becomes a door of the citizens of the people who make up hell. The souls of the dead create this door that Doomsday can't penetrate and escape from. And so it's actually the souls of hell themselves, these evil souls, don't want Doomsday to escape hell. And it was Kara and Martian Manhunter appealing to their hope to save the humanity, to prevent Doomsday from doing that. I thought that was excellent. I thought kudos to Dan Waters. Dan Waters has been doing a real good job lately. I really like the job he was doing. I love what he did. I give it a 9.5 out of 10. His work on Detective Comics on the Night Terrors Parts 1 and 2. Detective Comics did a really good job. And I got to say, it was very well done. And the first of the Fallen here is very pleased when Doomsday can't escape. The moment that Doomsday can't escape, he sends Kara and Martian Manhunter back to the real world because Doomsday's been defeated. And so because Doomsday's been defeated, that means that the people of Hell continue to believe in the first of the Fallen and not Doomsday. And so Doomsday remains defeated for now, but the final page shows Doomsday continuing to relentlessly smash his fist into the door of Hell. And remember, just as a callback to that the classic issues of Superman leading up to the death of Superman, where it showed every issue, you'd have that teasing fist slamming into the wall until Doomsday eventually escaped. And when he escaped, of course, that resulted in the death of Superman. What's going to happen if Doomsday becomes the ruler of Hell? That's the big question. Now, the other story, also written by Dan Waters, is drawn by the artist, art by Max Raynor, and art by Max Raynor. I should say that I think Eddie Barrows and Eber Ferreira did the art on the original story, but Max Raynor does the art for the backup, and the backup deals with Raphael Farce, who ends up in Hell as well. And Raphael Farce managed to stop Doomsday with Martian Manhunter, but he died. He died in the real world, and he was also sent to Hell. But in this backup story, he basically becomes the Superman of Hell. He becomes the character. His character will be known as Bloodwynd. And so that's pretty cool. So he ends up fighting some demons in Hell, and he acquires the Doomhounds, the two dogs that look like Doomsday. He acquires them, and because what has happened is that what happened is that when Raphael died, he not only attained some of the aspects of Doomsday, but he attained some of the aspects of Martian Manhunter, and so Raphael actually brought Doomsday to Hell. It was suggested in the narrative, which is really weird. I don't know how he could have done that, but there's probably some connection between Bloodwynd and Doomsday, just like there's a connection between Raphael and Martian Manhunter, and that prompted him to turn into Bloodwynd, where he's accessing some of the powers of Martian Manhunter, which is very interesting. And he ends up taming the Doomhounds, who will become essentially his two pet sidekicks. And Bloodwynd essentially now will roam the different levels of Hell as basically the Superman of Hell, which is interesting. I gotta admit, we gotta admit, we're getting a lot of these. DC has done a lot of universe building in the last 3 or 4 years. They've created a lot of legacy characters, and they're creating with the Lazarus the Lazarus event. They brought more characters onto the playing field, and Bloodwynd is one of them. And now they've expanded the mythology of the Hell of the DC universe by adding Bloodwynd as essentially as the Superman, in quotations, of Hell, and suggesting that at some point, Doomsday himself will become one of the rulers of one of the levels of Hell. So interesting stuff, and it's going to be cool to see how this plays out moving forward. Will this lead into a particular event of some kind? I don't know, but it's interesting. Okay, our final comic that we're going to review is the Gnort Illustrated Swimsuit Edition. For those who are watching on YouTube, you're welcome. I had to basically cut out the Adam Hughes. I had to put the Adam Hughes Power Girl image smack dab center. I mean, look at that rack. You know what's funny about DC Comics is just the nature of the beast. They've naturally, in the spirit of diversity and everything else, they want to obviously continue to be as respectful as possible with women, and they want to, diversify and, spread the joy and spread the talent and get female talent and everything else and diversify. Absolutely, all the power to them. And yet, what I find funny is that we'll get issues that will Power Girl issues. Fire and Ice is a series that's going to be coming up, where they go to Smallville, and we got all these sexy covers, and yet on the interior art, the women are basically desexualized. You know, their breasts are made smaller. They're made to look, frankly, like average women, which is exactly what they shouldn't do, because on the covers they're completely exaggerated, which is how we white males like them. And I'm quite certain you don't have to be a white male. You can be a purple, green, yellow one and still want Adam Hughes sized breast on Power Girl. Thank you very much. So now, why do they call this the Gnort's Illustrated Swimsuit Edition? Why don't they just call this the DC comic book swimsuit edition? I don't know why they call this Gnort. You know, is it for trademark reasons? I'm not sure. Why give Gnort the attention? Is this important? I don't know. Who is Gnort, you ask? Gnort is a Green Lantern. Not only is he one of the intergalactic protectors known as the Green Lantern Corps and the guardian of Space Sector 68 or 69, the extraterrestrial Emerald Avenger Gnort Janizmacher has also been a member of the Dark Stars, the Justice League, and its offshoots, the Justice League International and Justice League Antarctica. But recently, Gnort made the leap from superheroic fisticuffs to high-folded, high fashion, with a magazine centerfold that's breaking sales records and earning this fuzz-faced rising star accolades across the globe and beyond. What I just read from you was from the middle of this Gnort Special international swimsuit edition. And yeah, I got to tell you, I'm baffled by this. I can tell you this: I will not be getting cover A. I don't know why anybody would want Gnort on the cover of anything. The last time we saw Gnort, he was actually in the pages of The Human Target by Tom King, where Gnort actually spoke with Christopher Chance, actually, before poor Christopher Chance died, by the way, by Human Target. It was probably also the best looking that Gnort has ever been, thanks to the wonderful art of Greg Smallwood. But in any event, this is a fun issue. But the covers are, I mean, look at this cover B with Wonder Woman, huh? God damn. You know, some of these, the art here is fantastic. Some of it's not very good at all. You know, this is J. Scott Campbell with Catwoman and Bruce Wayne. Of course, this is the full Adam Hughes one, which is, oh my God, look at that. Amazing. That's definitely the one I want, but it's probably a 1 in 25, so I won't be able to get it. But yeah, many different images of sexy women and sexy heroes, men and women on the beach. And there are 2 stories in this compilation. One is by one is by Julie Benson and Julie and Shauna Benson, and art by Megan Hetrick, called Baywatch. And it basically involves the birds of prey, the Huntress, Black Canary, Vixen, Barbara Gordon. Basically, take out the Penguin. Somebody apparently has the Penguin owned beachfront property in Gotham, and somebody bought the beachfront property from Penguin against, you know, they must have corporately taken over the beach somehow and robbed him of it. And so the Penguin is trying to destroy the beach by destroying the pipeline that is under the ocean near the beach. And it's fun. It's a fun issue. There's a great scene with the Huntress running, like doing the Baywatch scene where Huntress is running just like on Baywatch. You know, I kept waiting for David Hasselhoff to show up as I'm reading the issues here. It was kind of comical. It was kind of fun. You know, all the guys are checking out Huntress. I mean, because, you know, I mean, the Huntress is pretty hot. And when I say Huntress, I mean the Birds of Prey Huntress. I don't mean the Huntress. I don't mean Batman and Catwoman's daughter in the pages of Justice Society. I don't mean that. I mean, this is Helena Bertinelli, the actual, the Earth Designate Zero Huntress. And, you know, looking good. Megan Hetrick's art is really good. And yeah, very well done. And a lot of fun had by all. And it's always good to see, you know, sexy women. It was, you know, again, this is just a fun issue. What I like about this is that if you're they're showing us a bunch of sexy covers of really cool looking covers. Some are ridiculous. I mean, Batman wearing a Batman mask and shorts is probably one of the most ridiculous things you'll ever see. Why would Jace mentioned this before too, and I agree with him. Why would Batman just wear shorts on a beach and nothing else but then his mask. Like, that's ridiculous. And it looks ridiculous. Uh, uh, but some sexy, again, art germ covers. There's obviously Nightwing there, which, I mean, women are going to probably buy this issue just for that alone. And some really sexy art. There's another art by Helene Lenoble, which is really nice. Another more art by Raphael Sandoval and Matt Herms, and of course by Frank Cho. And Otto Schmidt has got a double page spread, or what was used for a double page spread, I think, for the pages of Action Comics, for the covers of Action Comics a couple issues ago. A sexy picture of Aquaman, a nice Catwoman Jeff DeCall cover, which was actually already in Catwoman Uncovered, which we already reviewed. There's another ridiculous, great art by Pete Woods, but ridiculous that Batman would wear his mask, and it just looks silly. But in any event, and then, of course, we had another really crazy picture of Gnort himself. And then there's a profile of Gnort, which tells you a bunch of crazy things about him, his favorite things. I mean, everything's done as a joke here. And then we get the final story written by Steve Orlando called Out There, about Midnighter and Apollo. And Midnighter and Apollo showing affection to each other on the beach. And they end up stopping the Brain and Mala from escaping from prison on a cruise. Somehow they're on a cruise, but they're being held. They're prisoners on a cruise, and they want to escape. And Midnighter and Apollo prevent them from escaping. But Mala is in love with the Brain, and Mala talks throughout the issue about how much he loves the Brain, and the Brain talks about how much he loves Mala, and the Brain tells that to Midnighter. The Brain tells that to Apollo. Mala tells that to the Midnighter, and they can maybe relate a little bit because Mala and the Brain basically say, you don't know what it's like to be so different and perceived as different, and people can't believe that you love each other. Because they're a gorilla and an actual living brain. Well, of course, Midnighter and Apollo probably know something about discrimination, both of them being of the LGBT community. And so they end up, seeing to it that when the Mala and Brain are apprehended, that they're incarcerated together because they love each other. So there's that. So that was a nice feel-good story by Steve Orlando, with really good art by Paul Pelletier and Norm Rapmund, inker, Adriana Lucas, colorist, Rob Lay, letterer. And so it's very well done. And more gorgeous covers at the end by Jenny Friesen, Trish Mulville, Megan Huang, and Emanuela Lapacino, and a couple other ones, one from Babs Tarr, and Amanda Connor and Paul Mounds. So there's a little bit of love for everybody. Michael Allred and Laura Allred, as well as Francis Manipole, and Terry Dodson and Rachel Dodson, and Joe Quinos, and Jenny Friesen again. And that really kind of sums it up. And that kind of takes us to the end, quite frankly. That sort of sums it up for the week. Now, I guess the big question becomes, what is my pick of the week? Well, I got to say that my pick of the week, even though it frustrated the hell out of me, it really did. It frustrated me to no end. I would have to say that my pick of the week, I'm a little bit torn here, but I'm gonna go that my pick of the week is a tie between Gotham War and let me just bring on my pick of the week here. So it's a tie between Gotham War, and I also really liked the Doomsday Special. I thought what Dan Waters did with the Doomsday Special was really good. I'm curious to know what the future of Doomsday is in hell. I thought the portrayal of Martian Manhunter and Supergirl was fantastic. I loved his portrayal of Supergirl. I think he understands the character. He nailed how hopeful she was, how powerful she is, how willing she is to give her life, just like her cousin. And I really liked Bloodwynd, the new Superman of Hell. I really liked the debut. That's a speculator alert. for that character. I think it worked very well. As I'm actually talking, I'm inclined to say that my pick of the week is likely Doomsday Special. I might give it the edge over Gotham War, only because I take issue with. I have a hard time with the verisimilitude of Gotham War. I don't quite buy into the characterization of the Batman family basically shunning Batman like they do and not agreeing with him. I just, not that they shunned him per se, but that the fact that they even considered what Selina was doing, it didn't sit well with me. But I'd be really curious to know what your guys' thoughts are on that. You can leave the comments below, or communicate with Chase or myself on Twitter, and I'll leave the links below for that. And so, guys, that's it. You can, you can follow me on Twitter at Metropolis40. You can follow Jace on Twitter at the Comic Source. You can also go to the Comic Source. Just type in the Comic Source podcast. The Comic Source is wherever podcasts are. You can go and you can listen to this as a podcast. You certainly don't have to watch it on YouTube. In fact, I believe most of you actually listen to this as a podcast, which is cool. Just get your DC Comics. There's some good comics this week, and in particular, I think the Doomsday Special is interesting, and Gotham War, I think, is going to ruffle some feathers, but hopefully in a good way, insofar as it gets people sort of talking about the characters, talking about the Batman family and the characters that we know and love, and yeah, we can go from there. So without further ado, from myself and on behalf of Chase of the Comic Source podcast, who couldn't be here, you guys have a wonderful week of reading comics. And until then, I will say, comic boom out.